Arnaud Larrieu and Jean-Marie Larrieu's latest film, Jim's Story, doesn't follow a Jim, but a Merrick, Karim Leclos. Rather, it is in following a Merrick's story that the story of Jim unfolds. Which is to say, neither in title nor in its narrative structure does this French drama let its protagonist lead. This adaptation of Pierrick Bailey's novel of the same name, Le Roman de Jim, presents a Merrick as a rather inert character to whom events happen. His constant inaction repeatedly emotionally neuters this decades-spanning father-son melodrama with a distancing effect that keeps its character at an unwelcome remove. The story of Jim, of the person Jim will be, begins long before he's born. It begins when his mother Florence, Letitia Dosh, runs into an old co-worker of hers. A Merrick, she'd heard, had been serving time. Yet here he is now, seemingly unfazed for having taken the fall for a youthful misdemeanor that's left him adrift, unsure of what's next or what's to come. Florence is 6 months pregnant and finds the affable A. Merrick quite kind. Very much the opposite of the father of her unborn child, a married man who's made it clear he wasn't leaving his wife and kids for Florence. Soon, the two are moving in together and raising Florence's child, Jim, as their own in her mother's country house in the Jura mountainside. Theirs is an idyllic life. Or seems like one. The young Jim, EOL Person, who we see soon grow into a confident, playful child, seems content with his life. He loves spending time with Merrick, the only father he's known and whose childlike, wide-eyed approach to the world around him guides and inspires him. But when Florence's former flame returns to their lives and upends them, in turn, Merrick struggles with what to make of a life that may no longer include Jim. The boy he's raised as his own soon disappears from his life, only to return to him more than 2 decades later when secrets and grudges are unearthed for the older Jim, Andranik Monet, to make amends with the first father he knew, spanning close to 3 decades and squarely anchored on Merrick. Jim's story is not so much a misnomer as a thesis statement. It is Jim who gives shape to Merrick's life, even, or especially, following his absence. As a narrative conceit, this leaves the protagonist of the Larrieu brothers' latest feature to sit on the sidelines of his own life story. Every inciting incident that moves Merrick's plot forward feels as if it's thrust on him. He does little to induce it, less still to fight it. When Florence admits she's ready to start a life anew in Canada with young Jim and his biological father, Merrick doesn't protest. He doesn't fight. He merely makes peace with her decision and finds himself at a loss for what to do when their communication eventually dwindles. Merrick's impassivity very much sets the tone for Jim's story. He knows he often lets life happen to him. "I attract complicated stories and dodgy deals," he tells Florence early on. And his is decidedly a complicated story, filled with dodgy deals, but one he seldom reacts to. Leclos plays Merrick almost like a holy fool, whose doe-eyed expressions rarely belie anything but passive bemusement. It's no surprise Merrick is constantly drawn to photography, opting at times to bear witness rather than take action, to observe rather than act, to chronicle rather than engage. And it is those photographs, their negatives, in fact, which visualize the Larrieu brothers' film. Those snapshots offer glimpses of the world as Merrick sees it, of the life he'd once built with Jim and which, decades later, he'll try to build back for himself and the son he'd been forced to forego.